Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today is a very exciting day. Today, we're going to be talking about movie scripting writing or screenwriting. Whatever words you want to use, that's what we're going to do today. What are the differences on screenplay? What are the differences on screenwriting? We'll get the terms on that in this episode today. And the reason why I bought her is we think differently when it comes to movie writing. We think differently when it comes to author book writing. What are the differences? Are there differences? We'll figure that out when we get into the call today with a guest of mine. Her name is Elena, and she's an amazing person. And she's so vibrant, I'm telling you. I've talked to her for weeks and weeks and months, and I've got to know her better as to what she does and what she does not do. So let's invite her into this call today and enjoy this chat today. Hello, how are you? Thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Hello, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming here. Definitely my honor for you to be here. But before we get into the details of your script writing and what you do, what you don't do, and all the fun stuff that we're going to talk about today, but what does Back to Basic mean to you?
So I prepared for this.
Okay.
I prepared for this. So I think what I'd written down when we take the word basics,
Hmm.
or back to basics, for me, it means kind of like the fundamentals, things that are like everything's stripped away. So you have nothing but what is essential,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then if we take what is essential and we apply it to my life
Hmm.
and my role as a writer, I also work in law. I feel that, or I believe that some of the most effective storytelling is stripped back to basics, is
Hmm.
stripped back to the essential, to the kind of the three plot story, beginning, middle, end. Sometimes works wonders. We think of all our favorite fairy tales, right?
Hmm.
They have a beginning, middle, end, and
Hmm.
stories that aren't necessarily as complex.
Hmm.
Um, I can give like a number of examples later on, but for me, that's what Back to Basics is for me, like effective communication, effective storytelling, but just stripped away to nothing but the essentials.
Yeah,
So
thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to go and read what you mentioned on the website when I asked you this question. So,
yeah.
what you said here is if we define the word basic, we find that it means essential facts and principles of a subject or skill. In this case, I can relate it in keeping, using, communicating ideas, tools, and skills. And it just goes on. Thank you so much for explaining that. Thank you for being here again on Back to Basics. So, before we get into the basics of that, first of all, I want to explain to the audience that I think you pronounce your name a little differently the way it's spelt. Can you explain that, please, if you don't mind?
What, as in mine, Elena or Eleanor?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So um, a lot of people think that my name's Elena, right? Like the Anglo-Saxon,
exactly.
but actually the name is Greek. But I'm not Greek. Um, my own background's like I'm come from a mixed background, but the name, like Eleanor or Elena, it's Greek, and that's how you should pronounce it. If you go to Greece and people see, if you like I have been, or to other parts of Southern Europe, they will call me Elena. But
Hmm.
obviously in Anglo-Saxon speaking countries, the UK, the US, Australia, Canada, the air goes to A, so it will be Elena, but it's not. You can alternate really between Eleanor or Elena. My favorite's Elena, but there we go.
Yeah, thank you again. Because when we first talked to each other, that was the first thing that I asked you: that how do you pronounce it? And then you explained it really well. So thank you again for explaining that again to the audience, because it does spell differently, but then pronounced differently. So thank you again
Mhm.
for explaining that.
No problem.
So regarding about writing, how different is writing between a book writing versus a screenwriting or even a manuscript? Can you explain that, please, if you don't mind?
So I haven't really written. I haven't really written a full book. But what I would say is, I've done like a lot of like masters or like dissertations, and if I can compare that to my screenwriting, screenwriting for me is like revealing the essence, so the essential parts of a human being or of a character. We talk about going back to basics. The whole point of screenwriting for me is to go back to basics and to capture the essence, really what is essential about a story, a person that you're creating, and their journey. Screenwriting, much unlike novels or novellas, it doesn't give you the flexibility. It doesn't enable you to experiment with lots of words or to be very descriptive, because the more descriptive you are, I found in writing my own scripts, it actually takes away from the story, right? And this is where I think, this is why I said, that's why I wrote Back to Basics is essential for screenwriting, because the more, as I said, the more description or too much complex plot, it really doesn't. I'm trying to think of stories that are just too much going on. Where's one example that I had to switch off? There've been a number of, I can't think, and it's really bad, like I'm on a podcast and I can't. There've been numbers of films or TV programs where there's too much going on.
Do you think Lord of the Rings is one of them? Or do you think that's well explained?
No, I like Lord of the Rings. I think there was some parts that could have been made less complex. But this is so bad, I can't think of an example.
That's okay. How about Inception?
Yes. Inception, for me, at points, no, that's a good example. I think overall it was good storytelling, but that's an example where there's too much, you can't follow. There was one thing and one thing. Okay, the point is, I quote one of my favorite screenwriters, Aaron Sorkin, you've got to have an obstacle and, character, and they're facing an obstacle. And it's one character and one obstacle. Whereas in Inception, what I found was that there was a character obstacle or a million obstacles, or about 5 or 6 different obstacles that they're facing, all within the space of 5 or 10 minutes. If you really break it down, and due to so much action or due to the number of obstacles, that is not basic anymore, right? If I go back to basics, that becomes too complex, and then you end up, or as the audience member, you end up being lost in the story as opposed to journeying and it, holding your hand and being taken, with it or through it on its journey.
Do you think? Thank you again for explaining that. But do you think with that example, the Inception example, do you think that there were like 7 writers, 8 writers? I'm just making it up, but you understand what I'm saying. That do you think there were multiple writers came up with this whole concept and then compiled it into one? What are your thoughts on that?
Do you know what? Actually, it doesn't actually have to be different people. It doesn't. Funnily enough, when there's that much action going on, it doesn't have to be necessarily one storyteller or or 7 people. It can just be one person creating that much drama or that much action, right? For me, storytelling, you can have. We think of great scriptwriters like the Coen brothers. Yeah, they create great. For me, they're master storytellers, because I think that they, again, going back to Aaron Sorkin's, character faces obstacle, not 5 or 6 of them all within 10 minutes. They create good stories. It's, for me, it's not about the number of writers. It's actually the content. It's the way in which the writer or the writer is communicating the story, if you see what I'm saying, as opposed to the actual. Whereas the amount of people, you can have a bad film written by 7 people. You can have a bad film written by, I don't know, 10 people, or bad series written by 10 people, or bad series written by 1 person, or a film written by 1 person, as much as you can have an excellent film written by 1 and another written by 3.
No, that's okay. Thank you again for explaining that. So now, from I don't know if you remember this, but do you know any bad writing? Is there a bad writing, or is it just not good explaining the movie? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. This is probably going to be quite an unpopular opinion, but for me, there have been films that like, for example, La La Land. La La Land was an example for me where I just had to switch it off halfway through. I couldn't take it.
Do you think it's the writing or the
Both,
execution of the movie?
both,
Both.
both. If lines are too cheesy, if it's, as I said, when you write, for me anyway, as a writer, my goal or my purpose is to reveal the humanity of a person, of a human being in its truest form without being over the top. But that's just my style. And I can do that in fantasy genre. I can do that, but as long as there's an element that's really truthful and genuine and you know, believable, that is actually believable, or that I can see myself in that character, and I know that other people can see themselves in those characters. That's great.
So
Whereas,
let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt, but when you
no,
said
no, go
cheesy,
ahead.
does that mean because if I remember correctly, La La Land is based out of many years ago, right? And I
Yeah.
don't think it's today's time, right? If you talk about today's time, yes, it's cheesy, but in back in the days, it wasn't. So do you think that it's because you're not relating to it because you're not in that time, or the people who grew up in that era will understand that movie? Does that make
Uh,
sense?
yeah, I do. It's possible. It's possible. It's also possible due to like my own taste and how I found it and how I see the world, like through my eyes and my own perceptions. But because I don't necessarily agree with it being in a different time, because there are films that I like. I like, for example, watching a lot of old Hollywood films, and they're the perfect example of back to basics. I
Right.
think, very simple plots, anything from Sunset Boulevard to Double Indemnity, anything with Barbara Stanwyck or Joan Crawford. Um, I think of Mildred Pierce as well. Those simple and very, again, like basic. Well, not basic isn't, basic, but very. For me, they have fundamental. They get to the fundamental parts of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, what I found with La La Land, when I saw like the lead actress and her interaction, I think with the lead actor, there was something that didn't quite sit well with me. It wasn't true for me. It didn't feel truthful enough. But then there are times like, and you know, you can have truth in also in different, in animation. I think of Inside Out. I think of a number of wonderful Disney films that have been able to capture that. But yeah, sorry, I'm digressing. Go
No,
back.
no, no. You're totally fine. And I just wanted to explain to the audience, if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
the thing is, guys, this is just her opinion that she does not like La La Land. There's other people around the world who
Oh,
loves La La
yeah.
Land. It is just her opinion. So just don't take that personally. I think it's just her observation that
Yeah.
maybe her writing, uh, from her writing skills, she feels that the writing should have been better. Maybe the execution should have been better, or maybe both needs to be better. Whatever the reasons are, that's just her opinion. I just want to make sure that everyone
I should
understands that.
Yeah, no, 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 I should have put that disclaimer out that I do not mean to offend anybody.
Yes, yes, yes.
My opinions, I absolutely make, you know, this world is free, as I said to you backstage, there are so many of us. We're, 7, 8 billion people, and we're all very different, and we're all going to have different tastes.
That's
So
okay. I mean,
yeah,
my opinion also is that the latest Matrix, which just came out, I did not like the writing at all, personally.
I haven't
uh,
watched it, I haven't seen
because
it.
it could be many different reasons. I'm not going to get into it. If
Mm,
someone wants to get into it, email me. Someone wants to get into it, Instagram me. But
mm.
that's just my opinion. So thank you again for explaining that. So how long have you been doing writing, or did that just come automatically to you that, oh, I'm going to be a writer today?
Oh my goodness. It's been a journey. How long have I been writing for? Well, do you know what? at school, so if I could think all the way back, I used to get called by my teachers they used to call me the girl who could write very well at school.
Okay.
The girl, that's what they would call me, the girl who could write very well. And I remember, so I used to get quite ill a lot at school, and I would go to the nurse. I'd be in the nurse quite often, so we'd have like a little area like for sick children. And I remember once I was particularly unwell, and I can't remember. I'd fallen asleep, and then I'd woken up, and then I'd said, "Oh, I used the word slumber." I must have been about maybe 12. Yeah, I must have been about 12. And then I remember this very vividly. The nurse, she looked at me and she said, "Oh my goodness, you must be a writer. You've either got to be an actress or you've got to be a writer. With the words that you use, the vocabulary, there's just something that's always been in you that's a writer." So for me, I think this kind of creative, like writing, it's always been with me, and I've so loved books very much. I've
So
always loved reading.
so
Yeah.
so back in time, did you write any articles or even newsletters or even newspapers locally?
Not that much. Funny enough, I'd only done like a couple of plays. So what we did, I remember we were made to write at school. Again, maybe I was about 12 or 13. We were made to write, I think once, like a play that we were doing. And I remember I got chosen to then kind of go, people were going to perform it, but then it got cancelled. So only a couple, really, funnily enough, not that much. I didn't do that much in my, that much growing up. I would maybe write it like a tiny story, like here and there. But what I did do was I kind of engulfed books and films. For me, that's when I've kind of ingested all of. I think for me, it's kind of like laying the foundations, laying that basic line of where I am today. And then if I think about when I've like started writing like seriously, about 5 years ago. Almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in May.
Wow. Thank you again, and congratulations on the 5 years. So let me ask you this here: a person who doesn't know much of reading or is not into reading, but they
Mhm.
explain the story so damn well that they don't know how to write. So what do you tell those people, and what are your advice on that as a a writer as yourself? What do you advise these type of people on that?
Do you know what? I think you've just got to just do it and not think. Um, for me, it's I think the best ideas, or the kind of the if you're struggling with something, if you get something down, if you really just kind of even write like a couple of sentences, it doesn't have to be a lot. Even if you just start with like one sentence or two, and then you keep like going and you keep revisiting it day like after day, then soon like it will be, one word will be two, then it'll be three, and then maybe you'll have a sentence, and then maybe by the week after you'll then have two sentences, or then 3 weeks after you'll have a page. I think there's nothing, for me, like writing, you've just got to do it. And not it's a very strange, for me. What I like about writing is that it's kind of that combination of being intuitive but also using the intellect to kind of
But but
do.
is it really? Thank you again, by the way. Is it really necessary to have complicated words, or simple words is as equal as complicated
As I
words?
said, as I go back to what we were talking, what the fundamentals of this podcast and the fundamentals of writing, not really.
Mm.
Some of I think of Harry Potter, and one of my favorite lines which at the very end is all is well. All is well. That for me is so simple yet so powerful. um all is well. um or if we think of some of my favorite films, they're only one or two words. If you think about it, let me think. Snow White, some of the princesses that we know, that have really kind of permeated mass media and culture, they're shorts. And as I said, in screenwriting in general, bad screenwriting contains long dialogue. And if I'm talking about screenwriting in particular, it contains, chunks of dialogue which are huge. And I've done it myself. I speak as someone who's been told off and who's been, told off by people who are really at the top of their game and have looked at my work and gone, oh my God, that's shit. That's
Yeah,
really
I totally understand that. I totally understand that. I totally resonate exactly what you're saying. So I
yeah.
just want to go and speak with my audience 1 second because my thought just came in. No, my thought just came in. So guys, listen to this 1 second here. There are a lot of people who work in the corporate world, and then these bosses, they want a certain writing, which means that they want a certain verbiage, a certain punctuations, or whatever. But then if you're not a writer, how well are you going to be a technical writer? You're not, right? You're always going to make mistakes. But in writing world, there's no rules, is there? So you make your own expression, you make your own way. So I think what I'm trying to say is, even if it is your voice or even if it is writing, just let it out, because one person or maybe million, you never know, they will be listening to you. And I think that's what she's trying to say and explain too.
Yeah.
So thank you again for explaining that. And do you agree with what I said?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You just, writing is free, and creative writing. It's free, and you can choose to build worlds, destroy them, create multiplicity of worlds, whether you choose to do it in a novel or on the screen. It doesn't matter. And as I said, you can start slowly, and then with one sentence or half a page, and then you'll see it grow. And it's like, for me, what I find screenwriting is like, it's like growing a flower, or creating something like that, growing a flower, seeing how the flower grows with your words. I don't know if that analogy makes too much sense.
Yes, it does. It does. Believe me, it does.
Like
Yeah, thank
bloom,
you.
and you watch how the story then blooms, much like how the flower does. So you'll start with the seed, with your whatever, if it's your one sentence, one word, or use your dialogue or whatever, and then you'll watch it kind of grow over time. And it's also a process as well. Don't feel the need to be Shakespeare as well. I think there are a lot of people trying to be like Shakespeare, what I've noticed, and try and get to being number one, or to do things in 5 seconds.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm still on my journey. I'm still on my journey. I'm still learning. I don't consider myself, and I really hope, to wherever I get to my writing career, I hope I never get to be complacent. And that's also something as well. It's to also kind of, that's what the beauty of writing is. So you can explore, and you don't have to think necessarily, but it's I just think it's beautiful. I really do. And it's about going on the journey as a writer. So the story will also tell you and take you to places where you never thought. It's just about letting yourself and having that permission to, as I say, write that word, or enable that idea which you're not even thinking about. I know a lot of my good ideas, I'm not even thinking about, what am I going to think about? What am I going to write in a story? They'll come to you, or they've come to me. So that's how I've created my stories. So
Yeah. Thank you again for explaining the process. And well, actually, there's no process, is there? So
not
thank you
really.
again for explaining what you do, and how you do it, and how it transpires to becoming your image of your book or the script or whatever you're writing. So thank you again for explaining that. One last question, if you don't mind. The last
Absolutely.
question is that, how was your journey on Back to Basics, and how do you have any words for all my listeners and viewers about your last words for today?
Oh my goodness. It's been amazing. It's been an honor. Thank you so much, Girish, for taking the time to come into my world and invite my own perspective on board. It's been great. It's also really got me into shape. It's enabled me. Going on this podcast is really, I feel like I'm learning as I'm sitting here with you. You talk about being on my own journey as a writer, as someone who's not only able to articulate, not only to be able to write, but to also articulate my own ideas and converse them with other people about story writing or theory. So it's just been really fantastic, and thank you. I'm very grateful. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again for being here. And then I have one last question: movies or TV shows?
Movies. I think I'm a movie. Yeah. I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm much more. I was ill last week. I caught COVID, and I was able. Obviously I couldn't really do much. So for me, I can easily, if I really want to watch 3 or 4 films a day, and I'm like, bring it on. I really enjoy films, but I do love TV shows. That's, again, not to negate. I love TV shows and I love TV series. But for me, I think it's because that's, I think of my childhood when I think of movies. So because I think the TV series have become a new phenomenon with streaming and various platforms and stuff. Whereas
Yeah,
movies,
I think for me, I think it's TV shows, not because I don't like movies,
Mhm.
and it's not that I don't like TV shows. The reason why I like TV shows more is because they dissect the characters. Like when you watch a movie, you want to know where the hell this character came from. So I think
Yes.
from a storyline, I think I like a TV show better.
Okay. No, understood. But then I think sometimes for me, I'm left more impacted by movies, like emotionally, and I feel
Of
like pain.
course. Like for example, there are certain movies that should just stay as movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yes.
each their own, but I'm not negating, for me, it's very close. I could, I was thinking about this, but it's still it's like movies are here and then TV shows are just,
Yeah, 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 yes. Thank you again for coming here on Back to Basics and supporting me on my small podcast, and it's just great and honored for you to be here. So thank you again for being here, and we're gonna keep on following each other, and I'll start peeking on your side of the world as what else is new on your world, and if there's something else, I'm pretty sure I'll grab you again into my show again.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you're more than welcome, and I'd be more than honored and more than grateful. So
Yeah, yeah.
thank you.
Thank you again, and take care. God bless, and I'll see you next time on Back to
Yeah,
Basics. There.
see you
Thank you,
around. Take care.
guys. We spoke with our guest today, and we talked about the basics of movie screenwriting, TV screenwriting, writing in general. Now, there's one thing that I did learn from here: writer or no writer, you always have a voice. Just write it down, speak it out, and make your own journey, make your own dreams out of it. And I think that's what she's doing too on her journey. Now, as usual, as always, there's a quote of the day, and hopefully my guest will like this quote. And here's the quote. The quote is, screenwriting is like ironing. You move forward a little bit and go back and smooth things out. I think that's what we're trying to do here. Trying to iron it out. That's what I said. Now, as usual, as always, what do I always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. But then remember, there are 3 things in every episode it makes a hit for me. Not for anyone else, but just for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
So what's next? And I knew it was military. Our passion was military, but when he asked me if I wanted to fix cars or medical equipment, I told him no. I needed a different type of electronic job because I had mastered those. I needed new electronics. So it was definitely military.
Yeah. So do you think that the passion for military is because of your dad being in the military, or do you think that you wanted to help people when it comes to the country or something like that? So I just want to understand the psych analysis of that, if you don't mind.
I think it was a